The WWH show. This is a show that asks a series of why, what, and how questions on topics that have national, regional, and global significance and implications. Today, we have such a topic to talk about, which is why Ethiopian women are not at the front and leading. I have the honor to have this discussion with Dr. Maigenet Shiferaw. She is the president of Center for the Rights of Ethiopian Women, in short, CREW. She has PhD from the University of Wisconsin. She has been teaching at universities on topics like education, and she is an advocate for women's rights. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, this is your first time, so welcome, and we're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the first question is, I had a discussion with another women rights issue advocate. Her name is Veronica Adams. We talked about, in general, the rights of women. But today, I would like to talk to you about women issues, specifically to Ethiopians' women's issue. And the first question I have is based on the theme we selected, which is why Ethiopian women are not at the front and leading, because go to political party meetings, go to community organizations meeting, go to social events and so on. The key players, if there are discussions, if there are some tasks, to take and so on, these are men at the front and leading. But behind the scene, the majority of the jobs are done by women. Why women are not at the front and leading? Is it because of our culture? Is it because of our men? Or is it because of the women themselves? Or a mix of this?
All of it, all of the above.
All of the above, okay.
A mix of all.
Okay.
Mainly, I would take the culture, the first one, the culture. Our culture is a patriarchal culture. Women are subordinate for all practical areas. From the household to the political power, we are subordinates. Women are regarded as family take care, breadwinners, in a sense breadwinners, but not the main breadwinners. So in many occasions, especially in the political area, women are not taking part. But that doesn't mean that this is all the time. We have significant number of women who have taken the role of leadership in many occasions, in politics, in cultural issues, in community organizations, many, many ways. But they are not as, the number is not very significant, as men. Yeah,
look, the numbers, for example, women are maybe half or even above half of the population. Mm-hmm. Think about the responsibilities they are shouldering. More than 75% of the responsibilities are taken care of by women. But we don't have even 5 or 2% of women leading. So there is a big gap. There is a disparity here.
I think one of the most important things why we are not in the forefront is because we are not organized. Organization is very, very important for women to be conscious of their rights and responsibilities, and also in terms of education is number one, that we don't have as much education as men have. The educational system is not really encouraging women to be leaders. I did my PhD dissertation in Zambia, okay. And it was about educational policies and practices affecting females. And interestingly, the Zambian educational system is very pro-women and,
advanced than Ethiopia's?
Well, in practice, in paper.
Okay.
But in practice, that's what I was going to tell you, but in practice, they have scheduled the classes, like, for example, women will go to homemaking classes and men will go to carpentry classes at the same hour. So they have no choice to go to carpentry classes instead of going to, they have to go to homemaking class instead of going to carpentry classes.
If a female student, if she goes to the carpenter, maybe she will be bullied
Yes.
or discouraged. Yeah.
So the educational systems are, even if in paper they are good, but they do not really promote women's equality. And also access to education is very, very difficult in Ethiopia. Can you imagine, it's only 35% of Ethiopian women, adult women, are literate. That means 65% of Ethiopian women above the age of 15 cannot read and write, in any language in the country.
So which means if they are not educated,
They
it's
cannot
unlikely that they become leaders, because
Exactly.
to become a leader, somebody has to be empowered educationally, psychologically, in
culturally.
experience, culturally, and so on. But as far as they are not educated, as far as they are not being given opportunities to empower themselves, it's unlikely that they become leaders. So that's why they are not at the front and taking leadership.
Right. And also, as I said earlier, organization is very important. And women can get organized in any way they want. Self-help organizations, or empowering women, like rights organizations. They have to be able to organize community organizations. But at the same time, this organization should be led by women, so that can reflect their problems, their situations. Currently, the society and charity law prohibits organizations to advocate for women and children.
Why?
That is the new law, which was enacted in 2009. That was
so
one
the
of the
government
things.
is acting as if there is no women issue. That means
They know
there is no inequality of gender.
They know there is a big women's issue, but one of the requirements for these NGOs, civil society organizations who advocate for women and children, they cannot get their funding from
women advocate organizations.
Women advocate, human rights advocate, children's advocate, disabled people advocate, governance advocate. All these organizations cannot get their funding from international sources.
What's the premises behind? What's the reason for them to do that?
They said you can only have 10% of your funding from international organizations. The reason is that assuming that some of these international organizations who are funding these local NGOs are influencing them,
But the government, for example, whether it is regional, state budgets or federal budget, they are taking from international organizations, funding from IMF, World Bank. They are indebted to their neck. So why they take money from the international community, but they deny non-profits to get funding from the international community?
That's a very good question. And in fact, a week ago we had a conference, the CRU, the Center for the Rights of Ethiopian Women, had a conference on the role of civil societies in the upcoming 2015 elections. And one of the topics that we have discussed was, what is this CSO law that prohibits organizations that are working on rights issues not to get their funding from outside, or even not to be allowed to talk about rights issues in the country. And one of the person who was discussing this was a very knowledgeable person who came from Ethiopia recently and who had experience during the formation of this law. And one of the reasons he told us was that the government is really fearful of the influence of NGOs, foreign NGOs or foreign donors on the local NGOs who are working on the right issues. And they say that's a security issue, sovereignty issue. And so these are the kind of impediments for women's organization not to really be fruitful, to help women to get into that position of leadership.
We give the background to our audience that even if women constitute the majority of the population, even if they are doing the majority of the jobs at the family level, organizational level, and nationally, they're not empowered, they're not educated. That's why they're not in leadership. And also there are laws that prevent many women rights organizations to promote women's issues because they don't have funding. If you don't have funding, you cannot really do anything because everything requires you to have resources. The government is not supporting. Locally, you can't really generate enough money. So internationally, you can't have funding. So yes, that's the issue. So, but let's talk about gender relation in Ethiopia. What are those intentional or unintentional things that Ethiopian men are doing that undermine the role of women in leadership or that withhold the success of women?
Well, men are all socialized from early childhood that they are superior to women, to girls. Parents choose men to go to school if there is a choice or if there is resource limitations.
Yeah. If they should choose
a boy. They choose a boy. And women are supposed to be working at home. So men are socialized that way, and they are always feel like that they should be the leaders, they should be the breadwinners, they should be going to school, and that's socialization is very strong from childhood up to, and then when they go to school, schools are socializing them, just like I said, the curriculum socializes them to be, in a better position to govern, to be leadership. So our men felt that they are superior in terms of leadership.
It may be unconscious. They may not even know it.
It may be unconscious, but there are some conscious people who are not doing that. But in majority, when you think of the situation and the political situation, every time there is some gathering, as you said earlier, you see only men. But they also, believe me, organizers run around to find women to have, just to say that there are some women here.
Women. So for just the numbering, so
exactly,
superficially for politics propaganda.
But they are not saying that, who would be the best person, so-and-so, a woman would be the best person to talk to on this. And they say that, who can, where will you get women? So that shows that there's always subordinate role women play. And that is very, very discouraging for younger people to join.
I think I understand that many Ethiopian organizations in the diaspora, they are led by men. But, I came to ISAT 2 years ago, even more than 2 years ago originally, and I didn't see any one woman. I came a year and a half ago. So that's when I began this program. When I came there, I saw 3-4 women, even some of them are in leadership positions. So ISAT looks like they embraced that women, they play key roles. We need them. And I understand that whether it is in the field, in the fight against tyranny, in the fight against injustice in Ethiopia, women are bold, heroine. They fight. They are strong. They can take leadership. They can achieve great things if they are allowed, if they are empowered to become leaders. And I see that at ISAT, for example. And I see these, women, what they could do. They are very dynamic. They work hard. I see that. So what would have happened if our political organizations, community organizations, churches, and other community organizations embrace women, allowing them to take leadership, not just for the number case, just for diversity case, but to make sure that we use their wisdom, we use their uniqueness, their talent, because we're wasting their talent if we don't allow them to flourish in leadership.
Yeah, at the same time, the women have to be conscious of seeking those leadership, want to be a leader. But to make them conscious, there should be an enabling environment so that they would be able to learn about their rights and responsibilities and also be knowledgeable of what is going on. It's not for the sake of number, but they have to be good leaders who knows the situations in the country, the political, economic, and social situations. So in order to do that, women have to be conscious. And I strongly believe that having a women's organization will allow them to become conscious. And those organizations we talked about, for example, the Ethiopian Women's Lawyers Association in Ethiopia was really a wonderful organization that helped a lot of
when I was in Ethiopia.
Yes, that helped a lot of women who were, bound to be abused, just because they are women, but these women fight for them. But now they are not really almost functional because of this CSO. Because of that law, the CSO law, which barred them not to get funding from the international organization. And
I think the government in Ethiopia, they may understand that if we have enlightened women, it will be very difficult for them to use some lame principles, ideologies to divide Ethiopians alongside their ethnic groups. Because when we have enlightened women, that means they are very strong, very influential. Think about it. For every man, you have a mother that you love, you have a sister, a wife, a daughter you love. So if you have in your house well-enlightened women, you can imagine how they can even encourage, embolden the men to fight injustice, to fight this silly, non-productive, biased policy of dividing Ethiopians alongside ethnic groups. So I think by barring women, by suppressing women, by neglecting women, what they are doing is they are buying time so that they don't have this conscious society that fights their biased policies.
I'm not sure that's, the reason why. It is not only for women, it's for men and women, that there is no freedom of speech, there is no freedom of assembly, there is no association. In the country there is all these basic human rights are not permitted. But in the Constitution, it's there. It's when you read the Constitution, it's so beautiful. It looks like any other democratic country. But they are not enabling the people to implement the Constitution. So that's one of the reasons. But culturally, women have not been in the forefront. And in addition to that, if they are barred from being conscious because of limited resources and not freedom of association and press, then they are also doubly oppressed, culturally as well as by the government, politically. So women would be conscious. One thing you have said that is, for example, women might be able not to say about the division of ethnic division, because women always unite because of their gender throughout the ethnic boundaries. Let alone, the country. Throughout the world, women are getting together to fight their oppression from their government. So, having a divided society, you are right. Women might be able to unite them because of their oppression together. The women themselves,
so they sympathize.
Right, and then
they're also good. They have wisdom. They have wisdom. They're also very good to connect the men. Because I know men want to fight. Yes, they may be bold in the fight against tyranny and so on. But women's wisdom, women's ability to unite, that is very critical. That's why, otherwise, if I'm a politician in Ethiopia, I would have allowed women organizations if I'm not scared, because my focus would have been on the men. But this government, I believe that they are scared also with empowered women, because they don't want anyone to be enlightened. Not only this government,
all governments are scared of empowered people, not only women. Empowered women, as you said, women throughout the world stood for peace. Women are the ones who are victims of war. So they don't want their children to go to war, or so they are always talking about peace and peaceful coexistence. And so because of that, of course, that empowers people. And that might be a reason for the government to bar some of the, some of the issues, some of the advocacy situations.
So we talked about why women are not leading, partly because women themselves, they are not seeking leadership positions because of some unproductive belief systems within them. They may think that they're not qualified, or they may think that they won't be respected, or they think that they may not be heard, and so on and so forth. But what are some of the things that men could do to help women come out and take leadership positions, because when they do that, it's beneficiary not only to the women, it's also beneficiary to the men, to their children, and to the future and to the country, because we are losing the potential, the ability of the majority of our population. So what men should do to support?
Men also should be conscious of what you said now. Women are half of the population. They are their mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, and they should be conscious of that. They should be treated equal. Okay. Men should be conscious of that. And there are many men who fought for women equality in Ethiopia and in many countries. So they should be able to be conscious of that, of women are can do as much as you would do, or what would you do, for example. You came here and you didn't see many women and you were surprised. So, but a year later, when you came back, you have a couple of women here. And so the fact that you noticed that there are no women, it's not because you needed diversity, but I'm sure you have said that their contribution is very important. So men have to. And another thing is, for example, when we have women's organizations, men say, why women's organization? Is it necessary to have a separate organization for women? Do we have to have a separate organization for men? No, women are doubly oppressed. And because of that situation, they have to have a space for themselves to be conscious. Okay, I can give you an example. I remember when we had our first conference of the to start CREW here about 4 years ago. It was a 3-day conference, and around 100 women came from different states in Canada. Through the 3 days, not all the time at one time, but through the 3 days. And at the end of the conference, this woman got up and she said she has been here for many, many years, and well-educated woman. And she said, this is the first time I'm holding a microphone. Wow. I have never spoke in a public gathering. This is the first time. And at that time, she was empowered. Yes. Because we were there, women only. We were discussing our issues, the social, political, and economic issues in the country and the diaspora. And she was so much related to those issues. And she spoke in public. And she said, this is the first time I'm holding a... And it's such an emotional time. And another woman came and she said, that she was abused by her husband. She brought a 2-year-old baby with her. And immediately the women around there tried to support her by finding a social worker. And so people were open in that kind of situation because there was a space for us to talk about our issues. That doesn't mean we are against men. Yes. Not at all. These men are also, just like we said, they are our brothers, husbands, children, sons, uncles. These are our own people. Exactly. But what we are asking for is, okay, if you want to work with us, let us also be conscious of the issues so that we could be equal. Instead of just being invited to come and talk what you asked me to talk, but let me be part of it. Let me be aware of the situations. So that is, men misunderstand that. So you are organizing women only. I get this all the time, many years. Why are you always concerned about women? No, I'm not only concerned. I'm concerned about the family. When you are concerned about women's issue, you are concerned about the families.
So do you invite men to your conferences? Do you involve men into your activities?
Yes. The first conference I was telling you was only for women, 40 days. And as a result of that conference, we created CREW. But after that, we have had several conferences. And men are speakers, men are involved, men support us, and men fund us, because they know what we are doing now. They are very comfortable of what we are doing. It's not an association that's gathered to,
bash. Men and
no. This
create tension between men and women. I think that's smart because in the past, many of women rights organizations, they always invited women. They marginalize or avoid men, and the struggle is all about women liberating themselves from men. I think that's not a very smart way of approaching the issue, because there are many men that support that women should be in leadership, so they should be involved. And also any struggle, women may be minorities in government, minorities in organizations. If they bring men, they become now majorities, so they should not fight this fight alone.
Yes, it's this issue is raised many times throughout the women's liberation movement in the early years in America and throughout the world. And women, initially they thought that to liberate ourselves, we have to be independent of men. Yeah, independent of men. But through the years, things have changed, There is this is the stage of consciousness. I don't know if I taught so many years philosophy of adult education. And one of the philosophers which I admire very much and learn is called Paulo Freire. I don't know if you have heard of him. He's a Brazilian adult educator. He died in 1997. He laid out stages of consciousness, how to raise your consciousness. And I'm not going to take the time, but I just want to show you how.
Yes, good. It may help us how women, for example, can let go of some unproductive, limiting beliefs and raise their consciousness. Because if they don't raise their consciousness, it's unlikely that they know their rights, they don't know their potential, and also they don't know how to take their consciousness to the next level, take their involvement in our community to the next level. So it's good. So tell us a little bit more on that.
Yeah, more on that is like the stages of consciousness is the first stage, not only in women, in any society. The first stage is that people do not know they are oppressed. They don't. They will say, oh, this is, God gave me this, and, this is my lot, I'm supposed to be like this.
This is my destiny.
This is my destiny, And then through the process of conscientization, then what Paulo Freire did was that he trained some people, and he sent them to this neighborhood in Brazil, where he would take one word, which is very important word in that community, either farmers, women, and that word would be generative word, like empowerment. And through that empowerment, they talk about empowerment. What is empowerment? All this, and then they learn the alphabet. He was teaching literacy in the same time. He said the first one is not knowing that you are oppressed. The second level is when you start knowing that you are oppressed through those generative words. Then you ask questions. Why am I in this kind of situation? Who is doing what to me? It's not God. There must be some reason. So you get angry.
Man, yeah.
Yes. So the first one is to be angry. To be angry. So like in the women's movement in this country, they took their brass out and they threw it away in the 70s because they are angry. These are the ones. That doesn't define me. Yeah. And then the next stage, when you are more aware of the situation, is angry is not the solution.
Productive and it's not sustainable.
So what can I do? Who is the oppressor? Then they started knowing that we can get organized. We can ask about our rights. So they started asking about their rights and the solution.
The question is, what kind of things are you doing to raise the consciousness of women?
Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. This is a process which, a very well-educated person raised. So for women in the community, where they are, in the grassroots, they can start saying, okay, why is food expensive? How come I don't have enough food for me, but the other person is not being jealous, but reality, what's wrong with it? So they get together and they started, first of all, identifying what is the issue. The second role after that would be, okay, where do we go to seek help? Shall we go to the government and ask this? The third is, why should I ask and beg? This is my right. I need to demand. I'm a human being. I can't live, like this. So they would start organizing and start demanding their rights. In order to do that, they have to start from the grassroots level for women to be organized. As a school level, those who are at least in the high school or even after that, then they start sitting and discussing their issues. And then recognizing what is so important that they have to do to improve their lives. Okay, so they could organize. But these are the kind of steps that we have to take. In this society where we are now, it's the same thing in the United States. They have to get together and find out, the United States is the best place where you can get organized because this is a society organization. You cannot build a democracy without a civil society. The civil society is the strongest arm of democracy. So America is known for that. It has thousands, millions of civil society organizations. So if something happens in their community, the first thing they do is get organized. If someone is killed in their community, they get organized and ask questions about it. And then through that process, they can demand their rights. Why this is happening, there should be change. So this is the kind of steps that women should do also.
Let's find some solutions, suggest some recommendations. How do you think community organizations, schools, and other, including the government, could do something to empower women?
Okay, the government has a lot to offer. As I said earlier, the Constitution is a very good Constitution in written. Yeah. It allows women to get organized, allows women to do a number of things. In fact, it has some leverage for joining the parliament. 30% of parliament is allocated for women. All these are in written, very good. Schools also can do something. The curriculum should be including, gender-sensitive curriculum. There are, things started, something like that. The community should be supportive of women's organizations. They are part of the community, so they should be supported.
How can they support, or how they do support?
They do support them by donating money to the organizations or allowing them to use their facilities for women, and not for women not to say, okay, they are organized to do something, but believe them, they are organizing to improve their lives and the community's lives. Okay, after we say that, the government, not only in written, but also creating the enabling environment to be able to implement those laws. Okay, so right now, the Ethiopian government has good laws, written, but they cannot be implemented because of the conditions right now. So these conditions have to be changed. The CSO law has to be repealed, in my opinion. The freedom of speech and freedom of association have to be approved, implemented, all those laws. So the government has a big role to play. The committees, as I said, have to support them, and also not to be suspicious of women being organized. They are organizing for their family, for their community, and for their country. So these are the kind of things, women and the community and the government should do.
What kind of support, for example, women should give to some other activities? There are out there people fighting injustice, fighting for democracy, freedom, the rule of law, and so on. What should be the role of women, and how can they boost this struggle against tyranny?
Women are part of the community. Okay, they are organizing not only for self-help, but also for their empowerment, for their liberty, and so women should be supported, through these organizations. But through these organizations, social change is not only asking, out in demonstration, but social change starts being conscious. What do I need, for my community? What do I need for my country? What do I need for being a citizen? What's my right and what's my responsibility? Once they know that their rights and responsibilities,
they could be able to
fight for it. It's not just for the sake of fighting, but they face these realities day to day. They are saying these realities and have to fight for their liberation from being oppression. So it comes so natural when people are so conscious. It comes so natural to demand those things.
So what CREW is doing right now to empower women? What kind of projects do you have in the near future?
Okay. CREW, as I said earlier, was created as a result of the first international conference of Ethiopian women in the diaspora. And we had that conference, as I told you, had a number of people, about 100 people through the 3 days. And we discussed different issues, economic, social, political issues of Ethiopian women at home and in the diaspora. And at the end of the conference, we decided to create an organization which promotes the rights of Ethiopian women worldwide. And that was it was created in 2012. Several months later, there was an organization before that. It's called Ethiopian Women for Peace and Development, which stayed for 21 years. And that organization merged with us to become a very strong women organization. We became one. And since then, our goals are three. Objectives are three. Number one, education. Just like we said, we wanted to educate people in general, not only women, about the situation of Ethiopian women at home and abroad. Through conferences, through workshops. We have workshops for conflict resolutions, and we had yearly conferences in which we raised so many issues about women. The first conference was about violence against women, and the second conference about the migration of Ethiopian women, and we talked about the different situations of Ethiopian women in the Arab countries. That time was when Saudi Arabia deported many Ethiopian migrant workers. And before that, even we had several occasions in which we organized workshops to talk about the migrant workers situation. The last one about the CSO, the Charities and Societies Law, which we discussed. These are education part of it. Another part of objective of CREW is to advocacy work. We have advocacy work, and our advocacy work is for women in Ethiopia and here, because in Ethiopia some of the organizations cannot function. So we are the one to speak for the situations in Ethiopia.
Do you have any other projects in the near future?
Yes, we have the CSO law. We are going to work on the CSO law right now. We are going to have the advocacy work continue about women's rights.
These are the projects you're doing
right now, yeah.
I think they are very important to empower Ethiopian women.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming, and on behalf of ISAT and our viewers, I really appreciate you are very busy, but you decided that you're going to be here to talk about why Ethiopian women are not at the front and leading. We had a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much for coming. Dear our viewers, as you can see, we have been discussing about why Ethiopian women are not at the front and leading. We discussed about the why question to provide you background, and also the what question to see some of the things that are going on in Ethiopia and in diaspora concerning women. And also we talked about how can we fix this problem and create gender equality in Ethiopia. That's very important. You could be a woman, but you have to play your role and bringing change in Ethiopia. You have to go out, you have to use your talent and uniqueness to support your community and bring change. Without your involvement, the country won't grow. We can't enjoy peace, stability, and prosperity. You can be a man watching this, but you have to believe that women also could be able to contribute great things for what you're doing, whether it is in the fight against injustice, in the fight against dictatorship, or the lack of rule of law, and so on. Women's contribution is very important. Support CREW, support whatever effort that the women are doing, so that together we're going to have a great country. Thank you very much for watching.